This week's PBA Tour stop is in Amherst, New York. We're on Niagara Falls Boulevard, and the Buffalo Open will continue in just a moment. But first, an update of some of the things that happened this week. First, some of the bowlers who just missed.
Again, our top 24 and finishing in 6th place was Steve Wunderlich. In 7th, a newcomer to the finals, Bill Peters. In 8th, my doubles partner, Gil Sliker, still bowling well. In 9th place, in his 3rd consecutive finals, Ernie Schlegel. 10th went to Kit Wagner. In 11th, good-looking young player, Jim Murdishaw. In 12th, Sam Macarone. 13th, a New Yorker, Gary Schultes. In 14th, Jack Jurek. 15th went to Dennis Pate from Texas. 16th, Alvin Liu. 17th, Tom Milton, who was an early leader. 18th went to Dave Houston, bowling well again. 19th went to Bruce Carter. Jim Miller finished 20th. Dan Gezzi finished 21st. Fran Bax from local right around here finished 22nd. Guppy Troop, we haven't seen him in a while, in 23rd. And Joe Berardi held up the rest of the pack, finishing 24th.
And Mike, as the bowlers will tell you, a couple of titles can mean not driving from tour stop to tour stop, but flying. Here's what I'm talking about. First prize, $15,000. Second, $8,000. Third, $5,500, and then drop $500 for each of the next 2 spots, 4th and 5th. Tom Milton was hot, and so was Brian Voss down the stretch, and it was down the stretch that mattered.
It certainly did. As we can see in leaders round by round, Tom Milton led the first 3 rounds, and the last 3, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, were by Brian Voss, and Brian Voss is the man to beat today.
You know, there are so many different elements of a good stroke in bowling, and a lot of it has to do with how you position your hand and what that hand is doing as you approach the foul line. In this week's bowling tip, Mike Durbin addresses that very same topic.
For this week's tip, I want to talk about one of the most important ingredients in the sport of bowling, and that is a good hand release. There are several ingredients that make up a proper hand release. First and foremost, no matter whether I throw a big hook or throw the ball straight or even throw a backup ball, as many women do, is that I must get my thumb out of the ball first and then lift it with my fingers. It looks something like this. The thumb comes out and the fingers lift up. What so many amateurs wind up doing is they wind up taking their thumb and fingers out of the ball at basically the same time, like so. This causes the ball to skid or slide going down the lane and not hit the pins very hard. Well, how do I achieve, or what ingredients are in there that enable me to achieve this goal of getting my thumb out of the ball first? I believe there are basically 3. First of all is I must have good or proper timing. Now that simply means that as I enter my next to last step of my approach, that my backswing is at the peak of the backswing. If it's still going up at this point, like so, that means the ball is going to be late getting to the line, and as a result, my thumb may hang in the release and I won't get out of the ball cleanly. If at the peak of the backswing the ball has already started down, that means the timing is early, and what will probably happen is that I will lose the ball and it won't hit the pins very hard. The second ingredient is that I must have proper body position at the foul line. Now this simply means that I'm on balance. I'm not falling to the right or falling to the left. I've got my foot right underneath my chin and I'm in balance. I'm not bent way over at the waist. I'm upright, somewhat bending with the knees and looking at my target. And as I let the ball go, it comes underneath my shoulder, and about at this point is where the thumb comes out of the ball. Now it's important, as the thumb comes out of the ball, that my wrist is straight at this point. If it's broken, like so, what will probably happen is that I won't get enough lift and the ball will hit the pins weakly. Now the third ingredient is simply a proper ball fit. This simply means that I have my own personal ball and it's drilled to fit my hand. You can achieve this simply by going to your pro shop operator. He's an expert in this manner. He can fit that ball and drill it to fit your hand so that you can let it go with a good hand release. Now in review, the ingredients that make up this good hand release are, first of all, the thumb must come out of the ball first before the fingers. Second, I have to have proper timing. Third, proper body position. And fourth, a proper ball fit. If I have all of these ingredients, and if you have all of these ingredients, your hand release will improve, and if your hand release improves, so will your scores. We'll see you again next week.
And once you get all those things down, the 710 comes naturally. A look at the dollar duel on the PBA Tour finds Mark Roth in only 18 tournaments at the top, only $135 short of his sixth $100,000 year. Marshall Holman in a very close race with Mike Durbin sitting next to me, Ricky Sajek, Gil Sliker, Gary Skidmore, Wayne Webb, and on down the list to Ted Hanna's George Pappas, who has won almost all of his money in 3 tournaments, 3 very successful tournaments, and Mark Baker rounds out the top 10.
And looking at our championship round records, a new stat that we have here, we see the appearances that bowlers have on television and what their record is. And we see the leader of the pack is the dynamic duo of Marshall Holman and Mark Roth. They've both been on 6 times. However, we noticed that Marshall Holman's only won 1 match on television. That was in the doubles, by the way, Alan, when he won with a 169 game. However, he also lost with a 238 in Austin, Texas. I'm in 3rd right now. We see several players: Berardi, Cook, Janello, Hanley, Hannes, Sajek, Slago, Skidmore, all the way down to Pete Weber that have 4. With the best record going to Gary Skidmore. He has an 8-2 record on television this year. That gives our viewers a chance to see how the bowlers are performing when the lights are on.
It was a happy week last week for one of the very popular players on the PBA Tour. Earlier today, I spoke with him. About 2 months ago on a Friday, Mark Williams retired from the PBA Tour, and in one of the shortest retirements in the history of sports, he returned on Monday. Well, last week in Waukegan, Illinois, he won his very first PBA title, and that has to be a very big change for any bowler to win their first title. What's the first thing you thought about having won?
First thing I thought about was the Pro Tour qualifiers we bowl before every tournament to get into the tournament. This makes me exempt for 1 calendar year, and it's the Pro Tour qualifiers is a pressure day for us. Generally, we know what we have to bowl, and it's not like you just go out and try to beat more of the other guys. You just basically have to bowl a score, and it can really be tough on you.
What was your success in the qualifiers before? How often did you survive?
I've only missed 2 of them this year. It was probably 2 tournaments where I wouldn't have bowled good even if I had made the qualifier. But generally in the last 10 tournaments, I've only had to bowl 2 because of our new rule of if you cash, you're exempt the following week anyway, since I've had a pretty good cash rate going lately.
And of course, the grand jewel in bowling, the Firestone Tournament of Champions, you will now be a part of that. That will be very exciting, and that comes with that tour victory too.
Yes, that's one of the biggest things for anyone that wins their first title. I've thought so little about it. My wife didn't have any idea when someone asked her if she was going to be there, and she knows about it now, and we're making big plans to go there in April.
And Mark, I know that you've helped us out on the telecast so often, and every time you did that, that meant you weren't in the TV finals. It must have gotten tremendously frustrating for you to retire. What happened over the course of that 2 days for you to change your mind?
Well, I had a job offer which I was ready to take, and there was a little misunderstanding, and the job just wasn't available once I got home. And I just never looked for another job. I called my sponsors, and they stood behind me all the way and said if I want to keep bowling, that they're with me, and I just got to practicing immediately.
Now, the victory may have been a little bittersweet. You defeated Pete McCordick, who has struggled for a long, long time to win his first title. You are good friends. What were your thoughts right after you won and you looked over and you saw Pete with a look on his face like he had lost?
Well, I've been to probably the last 3 times he's come in second, I've been at the tournament, and there's one guy out here I want to win. It's him. He and I have been real good friends. We were in each other's weddings last year, and we've been good friends for about 7 or 8 years, and he's going to win, and he's so talented, he's probably going to win quite a few more times than I do.
A couple more weeks, we'll close out the summer tour. Our coverage continues with the PBA Tour next week. We'll cross the border for the Molson Bowling Challenge in Windsor, Ontario. And then one of my favorites, the PBA Seniors Championship in Canton, Ohio the following week. All that as the PBA Tour continues on USA Sports, which it will do from Buffalo in just a moment. George Pappas is hot. Not an open frame in his last 2 games, and one of these 2 gentlemen will move into the championship match. Between them, 39 PBA titles of experience. Mark Roth has 30, second on the all-time list, only to Earl Anthony, who now in retirement has 41. And George Pappas has been bowling in such a way that it may remove the smile of Mark Roth, who bowls just the way you might expect someone from Brooklyn to bowl. Very rough and with a big, big hook. Earlier, I had a chance to talk about Mark's year and how things are going for him. A win tonight would push Mark Roth over the $100,000 mark for the 6th time and put you very darn close to $1 million. But talking to you before, Mark, it didn't seem that those titles and those numbers were very important.
No, not really. You know, the 100,000 I've done before. I've got it right now, and it's so, you know, you want to come out here and make a good living, and I'm making it right now, so that's what I want to do.
A little bit different this year. Every week we come out and you're there pretty much. Last year it wasn't necessarily the case. Why the difference?
Well, I work with my partner, Bob Simonelli, and he's my coach, and found a couple of things I was doing wrong and helped me out. I'm throwing the ball a lot better, and I feel a lot more confident this year.
Now, last year you said you didn't really feel like bowling. Is it now because you're back in the groove that you feel like bowling again?
Well, I do and I don't. Some weeks, if I don't want to bowl, I just go home and just take a week off. But when I come out, I really want to bowl, and I put my mind to it.
Now, absent from the scene also this year is Earl Anthony. That makes you probably the leading spokesman of veterinary tour victories on the tour. Did that have anything to do with you coming back?
Well, it would give me a chance to, if I bowl real well, have a shot at bowl of the year, but not really. You know, you want to come out here and do well, and Earl and I have gone through a lot of tough matches throughout the years, but now I don't have to bowl them, so it might be a little bit easier, it might be a little tougher.
Now, you're also an entrepreneur now, owning your own lanes, Rainbow Lanes in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. How do you balance the two there?
Well, when I'm home, I'm there usually 6 out of 7 days a week, and it's bowling center I grew up in, so I know the people well, and we're trying to do everything we can for the bowlers.
Now, we are going to see you on the right lane tonight, hitting your foot after you throw the ball against the ball return. This is something new or old for you?
Well, Rainbow Lanes, we have the same ball returns, and that's where I grew up, and if I play inside the third arrow, that's where I usually do my damage kicking the ball returns.
Now, last night in the last game of match play, you went up against Brian Voss. It was a heartbreaker for you, as I understand. I didn't see it. What happened? Well,
I bowled in one game earlier on that pair, and I bowled 182, so I really didn't like the pair. I couldn't hit it, and I shot 170. Brian shot 230, and he took the lead, but you know, it's a different pair today.
Two bowlers having fine years. George Pappas in his 3rd championship round appearance, and for Mark Roth, his 7th. Only one more than his good friend Marshall Holman. Mike Durbin, seated next to me, I'm Al Trautwig, has appeared on television 5 times. Here's George Pappas. Let's see if he can keep things going.
That ball hooked on him for the first time. Now, I don't know whether he got slow in between, with a 5-minute break in between games, or whether the lane broke down. He's looking, counting the boards, because he looks like he threw it right in the same place. And right now, it hooks. See it grab that lane right there? 3-6-10, 3-6. Same spare he had in the 10th frame. And makes it the same way. Perfectly.
Now that brings us to Mark Roth, who averaged almost, well, 7 pins better than George Pappas this week. And listen to see if his right foot kicks the ball return on the follow-through. And he's got a bad ankle to boot. There it is.
Oh, he really whacked it. That's it. Now that happens totally by accident, not accident, but the fact that as Mark goes up there, we're going to watch, see if he takes 6 or 7 steps. 7 this time. Count them. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now watch his foot go over, and it hits that ball return. His foot goes that way to keep his balance, and the ball return happens to be in the way. It's not intentional at all. If it were intentional, he'd be fine every time he did it, but of course it's not intentional, and it can't be helped. It's just part of his delivery, the way he throws the bowling ball, and he hits it on that right lane, but he grew up with it that way, so he's used to it, and it doesn't bother his concentration.
He's really enjoying himself this week. Seemed very, very loose today.
It's been that way all year. He was very, very loose at the U.S. Open in Chicago. As he seemed bury those hands in there and tuck that, see that wrist cup like that? Then he snaps it through at the end and lifts with those fingers. Horrible result. 4, 6, 7. Ball just snapped through at the back end for him.
Now this could be critical, the way George Pappas is bowling.
Right. And as you mentioned, we hadn't had an open frame yet, and there it is right now, our first one, unless he can bounce it out there, which Mark can do many times.
Made it yesterday, but not today. So Mark Roth leaves an opening for George Pappas, who will now jump up onto the approach, and suddenly the smile is gone.
Well, it's never fun to lose. Not that Mark has by any means lost this match, but the way George is bowling, you've got to put some pressure on him.
He's right there.
we've seen all afternoon so far. George right around the first arrow, about the fourth board again. You see how accurate he is. And it's like an instant replay of about 10 different shots that we've seen this afternoon. They all look the same. We're going to have all the viewers at home counting those twitches, Alan.
Why should they be any different from us?
Well, as long as George is not self-conscious about it, it doesn't bother him. He keeps throwing those strikes.
Pappas in the third. He's there again.
Oh, I think he moved the board on the approach, Alan. I think he moved the board left and actually bellied that ball on that lane that time, because that ball really hooked back to the pocket. He gets good loft here. Knows it's in the pocket. Starts moving. They speed it up a little bit. And Mark's got to get something going. See, even with a powerful ball that Mark Roth throws, that inside line ball hits half pocket and leaves that weak 10. As he goes over and gets a piece of tape right now, tears it off, he's going to put it in that thumb hole.
Mark has some of the most bizarre calluses on his hand. I mean, some of them are the size of $half, and some of them are a ½ inch high. And that's why you see all the tapings and the coverings on his fingers. It takes him 15 or 20 minutes just to get his hands ready to bowl.
He really whacks that ball. Shoots those spares on the right side of the lane, on the right lane.
Now Mark Roth will bounce back to the left lane, which troubled him a shot ago. He's got to be thinking about it. Here's the story. That open frame in the second now puts Roth in a 24-pin hole.
Still looking for his first strike. Moves in deeper, turns it harder. And this time comes in light, but gets the tickler hit. And hit him thin and watch him spin, as Billy Waylow used to say. The ball barely hits the head pin. But in order to get a strike, the one pin has to hit the two. So watch the one and see if it hits the two. Just barely clipped that two, went to the sideboard and cleaned out the 4-7.
Pappas up by 24. This is the fourth frame, the winner to the championship match for $15,000.
See him get down in the crouch. He was ready to go and then didn't feel comfortable, came back up, twitched a couple more times, and now he's ready. Tie. Breaks up the split. Good break for George Pappas. I think what caused that was he never got comfortable. He just never got comfortable and couldn't throw the ball the way he wanted to throw it. Cross lane at the 6-10. George has been fortunate. He's hit the nose now 3 out of about the last 5 frames. No splits. Increase the speed, less turn. Hits both pins with the ball. And has a 22-pin lead.
You may hear off to the side, Ryan Voss. Very smooth, very confident. A winner in Houston 2 weeks ago. He's taking some warm-up tosses. Here's Pappas in the 5th. We're at Suburban Lanes just outside of Buffalo.
A little high. No, it held right in there. 7-pin goes last.
And the story, midway point of this, the third game in our coverage of the $110,000 Buffalo Open, is George Pappas up by 22. We'll be back in a moment. Back next week with the Molson Bowling Challenge. We'll be in Windsor, Ontario, Mike and I. We'll bring you that, and then the PBA Seniors Championship the following week from Canton, Ohio. Here's Mark Roth. He's bowling against George Pappas. This is Roth in the 5th. Down by 22.
Needs a double here, Alan. Needs a double bad. And, oh, the 6-pin just missed a 10. Didn't get the break. Really twisted this one up. Watch how much he turns this ball. Really got over the top of that ball, almost over the 4th arrow. And the 6-pin, the ball deflects. And the 6-pin falls, just misses the 10. Straightens it out, goes perfectly straight at the 10-pin. Hardly ever see Mark Roth miss a 10-pin. In fact, you don't see him miss too many spares, period.
Through 5 frames now, it is still George Pappas comfortably in front by 22 pins. You see it 88 to 66, and a very strange combination of bowlers we have tonight. One's kicking the ball return, and the other is doing 25 twitches before he throws the ball.
Mark trying to get something going. Gets that light strike again. A spinning ball that Mark Roth throws. All those revs on it. High backswing. Ball, the head pin barely gets the 2 this time. Just barely nicks it. Pins dancing around fighting with one another to get down.
Only the second strike for Mark Roth, who doesn't seem concerned about it.
He's still smiling. It's amazing. He's really loose. But he's running out of frames. Pappas knows that if he can win this match, he's into the title match. Makes this shot very big right here. Oh, you can't throw it any better, can you?
2 in a row for George Pappas. His lead is now 32 pins and pulling away.
George just keeps shooting 230s like they're his average, which right now they are. See, just solid in that 1-3 pocket. That 6-pin just destroys the 10. He keeps throwing them like that. I don't think there's going to be anybody beat him today.
Keep in mind, if he's averaging over 230, which he is, that's more than 20 pins better than his average for the entire week. He's averaging 237, identical scores in both previous games.
Trying to get comfortable, keeps twitching that shoulder, finally he's ready. Free swing, good loft. Oh. And he has put Mark Roth in a definite must-strike situation.
You think he was into watching this ball sail down the lane? Watch it.
George is into thinking about winning now. It's really entering his mind right about now, winning this tournament. Roth has to have this one. Slows up the speed a little bit, and the ball just won't hit on that right lane. See, he's in the position where he's in so deep that his ball's not hitting the pins hard enough, but if he moves right, he can't get it to the 1-3 pocket.
I think what really hurt Mark, Mike, is getting off to such a bad start. Spare in the first and then the open frame in the second.
Right now, Mark Roth, as he spares in the 7th frame, is potential 216 if he would strike all the way out. And George Pappas, if he would spare strike all the way out, is going at a 228 pace right now. We see the score 118 in the 5th frame for Pappas with a double up, 106 in the 6th for Roth with only a spare. The difference is 42 pins. Roth right again, and it's just about history. Leaves the 2-5, and Mark knows that while he's going over 100,000 a day, he's not going, doesn't look like he's going to get his 31st victory.
He didn't take any time on this toss.
See how he straightens the ball out of the spare. Mark's the most natural, gifted bowler probably to enter the game ever. He just is a tremendous natural talent.
Not going well.
But everything's going well for this man right here, George Pappas, as he steps up on the approach. Trying for 4 in a row, which would put him in the 230s one more time. Light. Breaks it down, leaves the 2-5. A little quick with his feet and didn't get the lift that he wanted that time.
That broke up the triple that George was working on.
But he's still ahead by 42 pins. Just needs to make the spare. Now he's going to move left and shoot it from the left. George is another excellent spare shooter, but the 2-5 often gives him trouble. Well, it knocked it over. That's what counts. George doesn't care. That spares up on the sheet right now. Into the 9th frame, he's ahead by 42 pins. Best Mark Roth can get is 204, and George Pappas would have to open both the 9th and 10th frames to lose this match.
It just isn't working for the Tour's leading money man, Mark Roth. Leading candidate for PBA Player Bowler of the Year. And here's George Pappas, 9th frame.
That's just the way things have been going for George all afternoon. And we get a smile from him now. That pin rolled him right over into the championship match against Brian Voss. Mark going high. Light every time on that lane, and finally goes high. Just finishing out the string, and Mark just doesn't know what to do. Just turning it harder, and the ball hooks too soon. Leaves the baby split. Hard and straight, the baby split. Doesn't make it.
He doesn't care.
Right. At this point, definitely does not care.
I can't imagine following through on every shot in the right lane, smacking the ball return as hard as he is, and having any kind of accuracy. But this week, he was able to do it.
He's been able to do it many times. We have the same type of ball returns at Riviera Lanes for the Firestone. There's the one he's been looking for. Although he's been able to find it several times on that lane. Got strikes there in the 4th, 6th, now the 10th. Just was never able to put anything together.
George Pappas has done it without an open frame. He still has one to go. Now all of a sudden Mark Roth is striking 2 in a row.
Well, you see how much slower he's throwing the ball right now? He's of course, I don't know how many steps he's taking right now. He's just grabbing the ball and going. It's amazing that he can take 6 steps, 7 steps like that and just get up there, and his timing is still good and makes such great shots. And leaves the bucket on the last shot.
Well, no matter, they'll still love him across America and at Rainbow Lanes in Sheepshead Bay. Mark Roth, a 177. And now the 10th and final frame for George Pappas.
Well, George won't be able to get his average this time. He'll either have a lower than 237 or higher, which potential is 246 if he would strike all the way out. It's high again. All the way over to the Brooklyn side. Leaves the 6-pin. Be interesting to see. I'm sure George is going to, after he makes his spare, experiment just a little bit on that fill ball. See whether that was just an errant shot or whether the lane is changing for him.
Second straight ball on this lane that wasn't quite where George wanted it. He completes the spare. One more ball to go. And he will finish on the left lane. Meanwhile, Brian Voss still tossing a few practice balls a few lanes to our right.
With a strike, George will wind up with 226 to go with 2 237s. 3 straight clean games. And he gets a practice toss here to make sure of what the lane is doing. So he wants to concentrate on this one. And he's still back in there. It's still doing what he wants to do when he throws the ball right.
George Pappas, 226. Mark Roth, 177. In just a moment, George Pappas and Brian Voss go for the big one. $15,000 in Buffalo. We'll be back.